Welcome to Red Ice Creations Radio. This is Henrik Palmgren, and this is our internet talk radio show recorded from the west coast of Sweden. You can tune in every Thursday and Sunday for our regular program, and do take advantage of our subscriber section if you want to have full access to our archive of radio shows. You'll find all the information on how to subscribe and be a part of Red Ice Creations on our website, redicecreations.com. And this is the third Thursday of June, and that means that we have our regular monthly guest, Michael Tsarion, with us. MichaelTsarion.com, originsandoracles.com, and taroscopes.com are the website that you should check out right away if you're new to Michael and his work. And today we are going to spend some time talking about sorcery and magic. So, what is magic? Is it mind over matter, or matter over mind? Is it having control over others? Is it having control over yourself? Is it being in harmony with what is? Or is it anything which impacts you on all levels at once, energetically, emotionally, mentally and spiritually? And Michael, almost in all your DVDs, presentations and writings, there is a central theme of the conflict between sorcery and magic. And today maybe we can dive deeper into this. It seems that you mention a lot that the world is under influence of some very powerful sorcerers, either if it's through the subversive use of symbolism, through the media. We have brainwashing and mind control techniques. We have cults and fashions, or even pharmacopoeia, right?
Right. And thank you for having me on again and covering this particular theme, as you say, because it is a big theme in my work. I've long wanted to really get into it in greater depth. I don't think it's something that people are too familiar with, because again, people tend to have a very false understanding, especially of what magic is meant to be, the way that magic has been portrayed in books and the movies and so on. And it's, it's not so good to always break things down to two simple components, I guess, but I'm a believer that most of the secrets of life are simple. We know that politicians break things down simply, but that's because they don't want you to think. I do want people to think, but I think it's accurate to break things down into polar opposites in this way. Life has been described as a great game of chess, the conflicts that exist. And sorcery equals magic, or sorcery versus magic is my particular way of categorizing, the world's problems. I've always seen it that way. I grew up, my mentors were people like George MacDonald, C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, who definitely helped me understand that you can divide the world into those categories, of sorcery. Of course, when I mean sorcery, I mean a perversion of magic, a perversion of natural operations of the universe. But we have to also connect it with what I've said so many times before, is that if there is such a thing, as sorcery in the world, we have to sort of understand not that it exists, but how did it come into existence? Why is it there?
So in a way, this is about, we talked about this earlier, this is an expression, if we were to compare sorcery versus magic, or the differences between them. We talked a little bit about the inauthentic life, and of course the ego and how recent that is, and so forth, and even the loss of self. And I guess you would attribute this more to the sorcery aspect of the problem, or how we should view it, than the magical aspect of it. And why not dive into talking a little bit more about sorcery right away, and kind of define what that is and how it works and so forth?
Well, sure, and you hit the nail on the head, because again, if something exists in our world, it's good to know that it exists, but why does it exist? You have to be also under sorcery. Somebody can be manipulating you, but you also have to be susceptible to that manipulation. So my job is not really to pull down the sorcerers from their ivory towers, in that type of, let's storm the ivory tower situation. It's more about letting people wake up themselves. The sorcerers are put out of business the moment that you cease to be under their sorcery. My mind goes back to the very, very, very fantastic scene in the movie Conan the Barbarian. I wish people would actually go and watch that movie with educated eyes, in which the anti-hero, of course anti-heroes are always very interesting people, he's describing to Conan, the protagonist, how much power he has and that it's not the power of the sword or the steel. Particularly it's the power of the flesh or the hand that wields it.
Yeah.
And to demonstrate this, he literally calls one of their followers, who throws herself off the tower and jumps to her death. When he beckons her, and then he turns to Conan and says, "That is power. This is power." So, okay, if you're a self, well, you ain't going to be jumping from no high tower. You're going to go, "Hey, mate, go stuff yourself. You go and jump." But if you're willingly, in whatever way, wanting to be manipulated, you can be led by the nose.
Yeah.
You'll see tiny little children, no more than 3 or 4 years of age, in India, leading these ginormous buffaloes, the size of which would almost astound you. Enormous buffaloes by the nose. A little 3-year-old kid with a stick, can prod these along. You'll even see them prodding elephants along. So, the size of the human race. Anyone who studied, secret societies know that the Albert Pikes and the Sidney Webbs of the world, they look at the whole world as one neck for one leash. They're not, dissuaded by numbers. Did it look to you that the Bolshevik, government setup was worried that Russia was one of the largest countries in the world, or that there was so many people? How are we going to control them? Nothing could have been easier. They just used the right talismanic words, and the crack the right size whip, and everything happens. So the sorcery is absolutely dependent on people being fragmented. And I've said it so many times, it's the fundamental key of my work, but it definitely bears repeating, is that how did that fragmentation come into existence? I believe that 13,000 years ago, and down through the different millennia from then, there has been humongous, changes in the world. Awful spectacles of devastation that have traumatized not only individuals but entire tribes. I've even gone to the length of saying that what we know to be consciousness, the human ego, as you were hinting there, is a very recent creation. Most people don't think about thought. Most people don't think about consciousness. They just think they have it every morning. They never even question what is thinking. They don't question, here we are trying to affect the world, and we don't even know what thought is. What is the anatomy of the ego? You can tell that a body can be defined by a torso, a head, 2 arms and 2 legs, and a hand is defined by a palm and 5 fingers, or a species of butterfly. Everything has an anatomy, but consciousness has no anatomy. Of course it does. But what is that anatomy? What are the divisions of consciousness? What is ego? My reading of it is that ego is a form of consciousness that was created out of trauma. But it was created out of trauma, which means it's terribly weak. It's terribly fragmented. It has incredible capacities. It has unbelievable focus and strength in many ways, but it's also at its root very, very weak and very shaky. And therefore, a shaky edifice, anything that has inherent impotency, can be controlled. Can be manipulated. Habitat can be influenced. An animal need not even know that its habitat is being influenced, but its behavior, its attitudes of life, its entire actions, waking actions, can be manipulated by the slow manipulation of its habitat outside its peripheral vision. A gorilla or ants or any kind of, we accept that this happens in life when it comes to animals. How come we don't accept? Will the human race ever wake up? I wish that the human race could just get as far to accept a simple premise, and that there is environmental ambient control taking place that you're not aware of. Teaching, instruction happens one-to-one, right? You're manipulated in school. Well, there's your teacher. You can see the teacher. The parents instruct you as to how to do this, that, and the other. That's one-to-one. The military boot camp major is going to tell you how it happens. What you're going to do. This is in-your-face control. Signposts in the street. But we've got to realize that there's this other kind of control. And the human race needs to wake up to realize that these subtle forms of control, and why they're also successful. So the weak ego, I believe, is, let's put it another way, the lack of selfhood. The lack of selfhood that has arisen is your responsibility. So yes, there's the responsibility of the sorcerer and those who think that they have the right to control your life. That's a huge problem in life. But I want to focus much more in my work on the fact that individuals are permitting this to happen by their, their own weakness, their inner split, their inner division.
Their search for an external safety or an external a component in reality that is more structured in a way, maybe. The
scaffolding. What happens to a rotten mansion when it's going to crumble down? You immediately got to prop it up. We've talked before about those famous Salvador Dali paintings in which you see these big, masks, the fleshy faces propped up on these little crutches, you know.
Yeah.
And we know that a person who's, you know, got problems with weak legs, you know, they'll put on the stabilizers and what have you. So man is itching psychologically for these stabilizers. That's what Dali was talking about, that man needs psychological braces. I want to take those braces off. You're not going to talk about any kind of social or constitutional freedom. You're not going to hammer it into existence legally or constitutionally if it's not inside a man internally.
Yeah. So there's a need for it, also in a way.
And there's the need for the scaffolding for the you're talking. Is that what you mean? That there's a need for this bracing?
Yeah, exactly. And also, you know, now the potential discovery of this, and also the removal of it. That when people feel insecure and so forth, that this is obviously a good thing, you know.
But I want to see that insecurity. I'd much rather see the insecurity of a child who is learning the miracle of riding a bike when the stabilizers are taken off. As much trepidation and potential, you know, fear of danger. I'd rather see that because it's coupled with learning. It's coupled with the exhilaration of now being able to take the, you know, the stabilizers off and have that fantastic experience of riding your bicycle at full pelt. You know, it's a sense of freedom.
Yeah.
I'd rather see that trepidation than the cowering trepidation of a scared, impotent, fragile, you know, schizophrenic individual cowering under the staircase of the mansion that belongs to them, shivering in the corner of the palace that, you know, that they need to begin exploring, which is the palace of being, the palace of the self. You know, because the seventh wonder of the world and the first wonder of the world is the self, and every form of sorcery and every form of anti-magic, every Sauron, you know, every Saruman, every demonic politician or entity or priest or politician or pope or pharaoh who is hell-bent on the control of human minds wants to erase selfhood and is an artist, an artisan, a specialist, a technocrat, an absolute skilled artificer of the methods of entropy. There's not one, you see, knife that, you know, eviscerates selfhood. It's many. It's a machinery. It's a toolkit. It's 101 ways of doing it, and that's what this, you know, that's what my work has been all about. Is that in some way try to address these tools in the same scientific way that anyone would want to do. If you're studying any particular thing, like a computer, you've got to only not study what the computer is, but what are the viruses that could attack those programs? You see, because you know, you may make a wonderful computer, the greatest programs in the world. You may creatively do that. But then you also have to defend it against those pathogens that could erase your work.
So we have obviously, you know, a physical immune system and so forth, but there is also a psychological immune system, I guess, then.
And that's the most important one of all. And it's the least taken care of. In fact, should a psychologist, it's within the realm of psychology that you find people who are the greatest warners, people who've tried to strengthen our immune system psychologically are basically psychologists, with a few philosophers thrown in. Nobody wants to listen to them. They're considered cranks themselves. As soon as you start talking about selfhood, as soon as you start talking about psychological immunity or psychic sovereignty or psychic hygiene, as I like to put it, you're completely ignored. Artie Lang, Freud, the list goes on. They've not only chronically misinterpreted what these people have said, they've misinterpreted them, they've mistranslated them, and they have well, of course, they go up against the sorcerers. So the sorcerers want to diss these people as fast as possible. And all sorts of negative labels, you see, will be put on them. Anyone, I don't care if it's a poet, I find that some of the greatest people who talk about selfhood and the strength of selfhood are from within the musical community. I think to me as an astrologer, that's not a surprise, because the planet, I don't want to get into it right now, but the whole planetary rulerships of music is very connected to the planet Pluto and great interchange.